we are going to build a custom drive shaft for our 1981 Toyota pickup truck. We made it to the one and only Tom Woods Driveshafts. We are showing you guys exactly how a drive shaft comes together, how they do it here at Tom Woods Driveshafts. So let's get to work. First thing we need to do is measure our drive shaft.
We got some paper to write the measurements down, marker, measuring tape, and then calipers are real useful if you have them. So first thing we're gonna do, I always like to draw a little representation of what I'm measuring so I remember what's what. So transfer case, axle, that's the drive shaft length. So the length, real easy. You just go from flange to flange. Best to measure from about center height, so not the bottom, but about the center height. Maybe nearest 1/8 of an inch is fine. So write that down. So that's the easy part. The part that's tough is measuring the bolt hole spacing. Toyota did this weird thing where they used a lot of rectangular bolt patterns in the early trucks, and they're all super similar in spec, but they're a little bit different. And if they're different, the bolt holes aren't going to line up. So what we're trying to do is measure from center of bolt to center of bolt in this direction and that direction. And you can measure in either inches or millimeters. Toyota is, technically metric, so if you measure millimeters, you're going to come up with like a more even number. So this, I would call it 60. And then in this other direction, see if I can see it, it's looking like 60 as well. So we got 60 and 60 as well. So this one is the same at both ends. But if you're measuring and you come up with something that's not on that list and you're unclear, a good way to do it is if you unbolt the drive shaft and then you measure from the bolt hole to the bolt hole, inside edge to outside edge. That'll give you a good line to measure to. Okay. And you're not having to eyeball the center of a hex bolt. Okay, so when we build shafts for Toyotas, there's not a lot of options for aftermarket Toyota stuff. So like this right here is a Toyota U-joint, but the drive shaft components are kind of hard to get. So what we do is we usually build them with the 1310 series. So there's this one here, which you can see is pretty similar in size to that Toyota stock joint, but it's a Spicer style, most common size U-joint ever made. Never gonna have problems finding a replacement. But for a lot of guys that are running dual cases, 40-inch tires, motor swaps, any 2 or 3 of those things, this stock size isn't strong enough. So what we've come out with is we have pinion flanges and transfer case flanges that converted over to actually 1310 series, but also 1350 series compatibility. So you put this on your transfer case, put one on your pinion, and then we can build a drive shaft, or really anyone can build a drive shaft that's 1350 series, which is this bad boy right here. You can see how much bigger and stronger that is than that stock Toyota.
Now tell me really quick, when will this be available?
So these are available right now. These fit the older trucks, pretty much any Toyota differential, any gear-driven transfer case we have the flanges for. The newer chain-driven transfer cases like you'd find on a Tacoma or the newer 4Runners, those are in production. We're going to have those hopefully by the time this video comes out.
Now it's time for me to start building my drive shaft. We have it all laid out here on the table right now. I'm going to let Sean explain to you guys what we're actually building here and why.
So the big thing that's different with yours is you've got a shackle reversal, which means the shackles on the leaf springs have been moved from the front of the springs to the back. Normally, with the standard leaf spring suspension, as that axle drops down, the front shackle kind of swings the axle back and you have a counteraction that makes the drive shaft length not change so much. You have now a double action, so that drops down and away from the transfer case, and then that shackle causes it to swing forward. Yep. So that means like a normal spline, so this is a pretty typical spline that we build most of our shafts with. This is about 6.5 inches from here to here, but that doesn't mean you have 6.5 inches of travel. You really have about 4.5 inches. So where we normally build that, you'd have 2 inches for compression, about 2.5 for extension. It's gonna whip around, beat up the board side of your truck. So what we're gonna do for yours is we're kind of taking this slip yoke and inverting it. So this used to be a slip yoke. We've deconstructed it, reconstructed it. Now we've got a slip sleeve that's gonna go into the tube, and then this spline goes onto this yoke shaft. We're gonna weld that up, and now you're gonna have for this example here, that's about 11 inches, so that gives you about 9 inches from compression to that's as much as we want it extended. That's going to allow that shackle to swing forward. You're going to get all that extension without pulling apart your drive shaft.
Awesome. All right, so we just stepped into the office from Sean, and they launched a new website a couple of months ago, and this thing is phenomenal.
So we put a lot of work into our website here. Today we're working on a Toyota. There's a few different ways you can find. We have year, make, model, but the easy way, just scroll down, click Toyota. Today we're working on a pickup, click pickup, and then this gives you some options on the drive shafts. We're going to be talking about this one right here. So we got some photos, shows you what to measure, how to measure, and then we have these drop down menus where you select your flange pattern at each end. We have some options. You can select greasable or non-greasable joints. If you want to upgrade to heavy wall tube for rock resistance, you enter your length. We'll call it 55 inches on this one. And then boom, you've ordered a custom drive shaft.
That's amazing. What else can you find out on your website in case people don't know exactly or need some extra help with it?
Yeah, we have all kinds of information on, we try to put the information in here on what to measure. We have a video embedded here that's going to start right on, well, this one's supposed to start right on measuring. We have some tech pages, a lot of stuff in our FAQ and tech information bar, stuff all about angles, how to measure, what kind of drive shaft is going to work best for your vehicle, lots of new content.
Awesome. So check out 4xshaft.com.
We're going to start, we'll build the double cardan first. These are all the parts. We've got weld yoke, U-joint, housing, another U-joint, and then the socket flange.
Awesome. All right.
So put that in there. And you kind of have to like push that up so that you can get the cap on there.
Okay.
You'll be able to get it started. And then I'm holding it with my fingers so that it's not just like falling out of that cap. And then tapping it down.
Tap it down.
Yep. And then we've got this thing here. So you put this in here. Kind of, this one's a little bent, but. And then that presses it the rest of the way. And then you'll flip it around, do the same thing. Got these snap rings. So we'll put this one in first. Make sure that's seated. And then press this other one. And then snap ring. And then this is super stiff right now because that U-joint's just pushed up there.
Yeah.
So you just give it a little whack and then that loosens it up.
Oh, okay.
And then you go on to the next one and
all right.
continue down the line. So for the most part here, we don't have one person that does this, then goes and press and welds, then balances, and
Yeah,
then
it's
does it
like
all
it's
the way
all,
through.
everybody has their job.
Yeah, we have pretty much 2 people in each department. Okay. So we have people who just install units all day long. That's all they do. And I've worked here for about half my life now, right? And so when I was younger, you know, I would just do this. I'd install U-joints all day long. That was my job.
That was your job at the beginning?
I would press and weld for a while, and I'd move to that and do a lot of machine work. So I've done pretty much everything here, but yeah, for a long time I'd just press U-joints all day long.
So that's still fine? Or
yeah, that's fine. We got to straighten that out a little though. So that's why we have this here. We'll just straighten that out.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
So now you can set that one aside, and then you're going to put this weld yoke into this housing. So for this, you're going to just kind of do the same thing, but now you're holding 2 things, so it gets a little more complicated.
Yeah. So you say, like, at what age did you start working here and doing this?
I don't even remember anymore. I think so. My dad started the business in 1999. I was still in high school. I think I was probably 17 when he started the business. So I worked for him kind of part-time, you know, after work. I had another job too. I was a dishwasher back then, but I would work for him a couple hours a day. And then I think I probably really hit full time when I was like 18, 19. And then I actually worked for him for a couple years, and then I didn't want to be the guy that has only ever worked for mommy and daddy my whole life.
Yeah.
So I went and did a couple other, you know, crappy jobs for a few years, and then I
come
back. And but I've worked here pretty much for, you know, last 20 years. I've worked here.
Wow.
Okay, next step. Socket flange is going on there. So this is the tricky part. Those needle bearings that are in here, they're in that too, and you got to line those needle bearings up on this little post while kind of leveraging that U-joint in there.
Okay.
You might have to flex this further.
Okay. There we go.
So before we put that in, we're going to need to weld this up so this doesn't just keep sliding. So we're going to weld this, and then we're going to end up putting this joint in with that flange on.
Smooth. Done.
Okay. So just finishing up this one. So that's done. And then this is going to go in after we get these welded into a piece of tube.
Okay. So now we're cutting the tube.
Since we've got kind of rough edges here and that saw doesn't cut perfectly straight, we're going to take it to the lathe and face it and then chamfer the edges. Deburr the inside, and then we're going to give it a nice groove for the weld on the outside.
So just manually turn it by
just
hand.
roll it by hand, find the high side.
Find the highest point, which is right here pretty much.
Yeah, and then roll that up so that's where you can hit it with a hammer.
Yeah.
Here's a hammer, and then just give it a good whack. And then roll it and see. You got it pretty straight, first try. And what we're shooting for is within like 5/1000ths of an inch before we weld it, and then we'll straighten it again after we weld it. So the thing I like to do is, you know, get that comfortable spot. But if you start with this at a 12 o'clock position, then you can feel it. So you're going to be rolling, you know, when you stop with one hand, you start with the other, and you do that until you feel it come around.
So is this going to lock in by itself, or am I going to operate the welder?
You're gonna do it with this. So I'll just do a quick spark here.
That worked out a lot better than expected, I guess.
So the guys that do it all day, this is what their welds look like. Yours is pretty similar. You're hired.
Sweet.
Yeah, you're really gonna run the shaft.
Yep.
This will be your new primary drive shaft. And,
yes.
If you break it, it's your fault.
Absolutely.
No refunds.
Nope.
And
no warranty, no refunds, and that's it.
But you'll know when you climb up a ledge or something, it's because of the drive shaft that you built.
So what's this part now?
Okay, so now what we're going to do is all that heat from the weld surely pulled stuff so it's not straight. So where you had that like about 5/1000ths before, now it's maybe 20 or so.
Yeah.
And then if we bring it over here, it's probably, that one's still pretty straight, but still not perfectly straight. So we're going to start with the worst side.
What do you do to correct that now?
So what we're going to do is we're going to find the high side, which is right about there. And then we're going to heat the metal, which expands molecules of metal. And then we quench it, which contracts them quickly. And that's going to basically pull down the high side of that.
So now we go right here on the deck.
Yep, right there on the tube. About the size of a penny. That's probably good.
Okay.
Yeah, and then now and then hit that switch on there. And then really kind of once that needle stops moving, which it has, then you know the metal's done what it needs to do. So that was an improvement, but
still not good.
Yeah, not quite enough. I think that's it.
We're definitely better than we were before. Now we're within like 10,000s.
Yeah. You see that needle moving?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Things like, I've seen people put balancing weights on drive shafts. That's like the ghetto way of doing it, or is that?
Oh no, so this is the first step, and then the next step is we still balance it.
You still put balancing weights on.
Even though it's straight, the thing I always tell people is these parts, they're castings.
Yeah.
And casting is literally pouring metal into sand. So, you know, of course it's going to be a little bit thicker on one side than the other. So this no balance weights, just your expert job at straightening it.
Right.
And building it. And we're just going to kind of start slow. I think I figured this in your truck it's going to hit 2,000 RPM about 40 miles an hour. It's honestly running pretty smooth. We'd never send it out like this. This isn't smooth enough for us, but I'll go a little faster. And then this is where it's going to start to make some noise.
That's how fast it's spinning at how many miles an hour?
This in your truck is probably like only like 50 miles an hour. We got 2,400 drive shaft.
That's so crazy, guys.
But it's, you know, it's making some noise. We can hear the noise. But you can put your hand on this. This end is actually super smooth. This end you can kind of feel it.
Yeah.
But that's with no balance weights. We haven't put balance weights on it.
Guys, this is 50 something miles an hour, and this is how fast it spins. Balance. Now the final step is going to be to put some paint on it, and then I got a new drive shaft. Here it is, self-made Tom Woods drive shaft, more or less at least self-made. He helped, this guy right there. All right, thank you guys, this was awesome. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for showing me your facility here and teaching me how to build a drive shaft.
My pleasure.
Cool, and again, no warranty, no liability,
no warranty, no refunds.
nothing. All right guys, thanks for watching. I see you next week. Bye.